Microfrontends, it's not about being allowed to do anything you want, but still sharing the working between two teams.
What type of business the microfrontend approach is?
Great question. I would say for any, but there are some businesses that probably get more value from that.
And that is the magic that happens underneath. So you can just deploy the one microfrontend separately, and after some time it's loaded.
So hello, my name is Marcin Grochulski. I'm a delivery manager at JLabs.
My name is Piotr Pasternak. I'm a front-end developer at JLabs.
And I'm Tomasz Szpila. I am delivery manager in JLabs. Before that, for many years, I was a software engineer.
We are here today to talk about microfrontends. With me is the very good specialist, Piotrek, and the great delivery manager, Tomek. And to kick things off, let's talk about the microfrontends. What are the microfrontends? How they are different from the architectural perspective from old architectures, like, I don't know, maybe some kind of single page application.
I believe that for many years in front-end development, we lived in the area of having monolith applications, let's call them. This was something derived from the backend world when the monoliths were also popular. And after some time, the new idea of having them split into microservices came into the life. This was at some point of time adapted also into the front-end world. In roughly 2016, firstly in the company of Zalando, they invented some kind of, let's call it, mimicking the backend microservices architecture and applying them into the front-end world. So basically what we nowadays call as a microfrontends is splitting our monolith architecture into separate services, separate entities, separate applications that could be delivered to the end user separately.
Okay, that's great. Okay, so right now we know what are the microfrontends, but from the business perspective, what they give what advantage they are giving us as owner of the applications to maybe implement those microfrontends?
That's an excellent question. Microfrontends can solve many different problems. The very first that comes to the mind is allowing working on different things in parallel by different teams. That can speed up things greatly, that can separate concerns, separate domains. What Piotr mentioned before, we will have like different part of our application, of our system that can be developed independently and delivered independently. That means that, for example, if you have a basket, a checkout process that is independent from your catalog, from your product, you can basically deploy the basket, change things in the basket without touching the other stuff. That means that time to market, fixing bugs, everything like that can be much faster. And also, teams are not stepping on each other's toes during that development, right?
No, that is very interesting. So we can imagine that we got like 5 or more teams working on the one application that can be on the production, and we are not waiting for those 5 or more teams waiting for, I don't know, putting everything to the production and fixing all the bugs in the whole 5 or more teams?
That is indeed correct. So basically this is the foundation of what we call microfrontend. So basically delivering our end product in separate teams, allowing us to choose our own technology, choose the way we live in our sub-teams, how we organize our daily basis work, and then assembling everything all together only in production. This is the foundation of microfrontends.
Okay, but about the technology, from going to the technology perspective, so we need to use only like one framework, like React for everything, or we can choose whatever technology, front-end technology we want?
This is something what I mentioned as choosing our own technology. Nowadays, due to the various frameworks or functionalities, mechanisms, for example, the one that is delivered by Webpack, the module federation, it was enabled to us to work independently also in the meaning of a tech stack. So basically one team can develop their own Angular application or part of the big application written in Angular. The second one in React, the third one could be written in Vue, and then only what happens is during the runtime, we're, let's call it, injecting their piece of the code into the final product. Everything needs to be somehow maintained as well. That is a crucial point of having well-defined microfrontends. The layer we call the shell. This is the place where the magic happens. So we have lazy loadings out there. We have separate calls for different microfrontends, and after that, they are being injected into the final product.
Okay, so could we imagine the situation when we have, like, I don't know, maybe React 16 and then the newest version in the next application, or we want to build the application, you know, having those features in the new React. I don't know, maybe there will be a React 12, 21 or something like this, and our tech stack is like React 19.
Yeah.
And could we use a React in the new applications, this new version of React?
Definitely.
Or this should be the same version?
Definitely, it's not going to be a problem. Even if we're discussing dinosaurs, like really old version of React, it won't be a problem to also inject such pieces of code into our end product. It's not going to be a problem. We have basically separate configs, separate package JSONs, if we are talking deeply, when you can specify which of the libraries are the shared ones or which of them are kind of characteristic for a given micro frontend entry. And based on that, there are no problems with combining them at all, although there are some rules, of course. People nowadays tend to apply their own style sheets or any other pieces of using third-party libraries that may mess up the final code. You have to be cautious out there. You have to still try to be on the safe side. There is still need for a separate architecture maintainer to disallow or allow different technologies to be put into the final product. That is something we call like a hygiene. It's always something that you need to keep in mind, that you can't mess up so many pieces all together because it's going to be mess after all.
Okay.
So microfrontends, it's not about being allowed to do anything you want, but still sharing the work in between the teams.
But that also adds us one more thing, as you mentioned, different versions of React or even like you called the dinosaur technologies. That also enables us to easily migrate old services to the new technology, right? Because always the investment that we need to do to migrate fully the application to the new technology is tremendous, right? So using micro frontends for that, we can do this chunk by chunk, keeping the old system, just of course adding a little bit of scaffolding, like a foundation to the microservices first. But after that, we can go slowly, step by step, by migrating services. We can also outsource parts of the system to the third parties, right, to the other entities, which is also super amazing.
That's great. So you can migrate the system piece by piece.
Exactly, and you can also use different teams, even like different external companies to help you develop parts of the system, right? And there's no like limitation; they need to do this in exactly the same technology that you are using, of course, with the limitations that Piotr mentioned.
Okay, so you are telling me that we can move the old legacy application, legacy system, put some kind of frame on top of that, and saying that, okay, right now this will be a micro front end, and choosing some kind of parts, pieces of this application, then turning them, for example, to the new React application, and the rest of it will be in Angular 1.6? It's possible?
Theoretically, yeah.
Theoretically, yes. As mentioned, we have this big new, perhaps not new, but still added in version 5 of Webpack, the module federation, and it does its job. There is plenty of configuration possible to maintain which part of the application you would like to share, to load independently, to load dependently, and so on and so forth. So I would say that was the biggest step in the history of microfrontends that was taken recently, and we're still taking benefits from it.
Okay, so the microfrontends are like iframes?
Not exactly iframes. Iframe was one of the technologies that people previously used to, let's call it, mimic microfrontends. Nowadays, you have plenty of strategies how you can assemble everything all together. We have build time assembly, we have runtime assembly, and I believe that what we nowadays call runtime assembly is the clear definition and also mine definition of microfrontends.
Okay.
Whilst the iframe is the different application run underneath and just kind of linked into the other application.
Yeah.
When it comes to the microfrontends, as per a runtime, we're talking about loading a different chunk of the application, just a chunk, and it's still being injected into the same runtime environment that the shell application is being run in.
This is speeding up the process of loading applications. So we can have like application, I don't know, maybe user panel or something like this. And this application is loading on demand. Yeah?
Yes. Yes, exactly. In addition to what Piotr said about iframes, some companies, some projects are still using iframes even today, because they have a couple of advantages. First of all, this is usually like totally separated app that runs on a different link even, right? And the most important part of making this micro front-end is basically the communication between the iframe and the host. So, for example, you have some kind of dialogue, modal, whatever you want to show on like a main page. They basically, there needs to be some kind of communication channel, some kind of event bus, whatever you have, to make that happen, right? So we can still use that. And in some cases, having like very separated, totally separated application in iframe is the way to go. But like Piotr said, this is something that is replaced with a modern approach that we are using today. Basically, I think that it depends on what kind of problem we want to solve, right? Or what's the easiest way of doing this in steps, right? Because sometimes it's much easier, for example, to separate, or I don't know, like checkout or something like that in an iframe first, and then invest some time into making this like a more, let's call it modern micro front-end in the future, because we can start from pretty much from the very first day.
Okay, so the micro front-ends are great, but where is some kind of, problems that we can have implementing the micro frontends?
There is always some additional work that needs to be done once we are discussing micro frontends. First of all, the architectural part. You can't just split the application in chunks as you see them, because if you feel like plenty of sub applications are like calling the same API, that's the first problem. So you have the separation problem. The second one is about overriding some styles, because talking technicalities, the sub-application can attach their own styles, which can override the global styles that were used across the application. So there is yet another step of hygiene needed, either by introducing CSS modules or some prefixes. There are different solutions for that, but this is still something that you have to think of. And the third thing that I believe is the most crucial when we are discussing micro frontends is about different approach of the organization itself. It's not that easy to maintain the micro frontend and to maintain monolith. With monolith, it goes usually with the mess. With micro frontends, it goes with the collisions. So what's needed in your organization is a good communication between the teams. And it's not only between the development teams, but also between the product owners and between the designers, which have to also think about how my change may affect different micro frontends.
Let's get a bit more technical. What kind of tool, platforms, or infrastructure are needed to make microfrontends work well in a bigger organization?
That's a really good question, and I would like to answer it from my own experience. Years ago, I worked in the project that we had the opportunity to choose ourselves the tech stack that we want to use in the organization. The only requirement that we need to implement, the only requirement was that we need to implement the microfrontends.
Okay.
There were not so many tools available at the time, but we found one nice solution, and it was called NX.
Oh, NX. This is like this whole system when you can build your own structure using generators and everything?
That's the one. And people nowadays, I believe imagine that NX serves as a monorepo maintainer. But as you mentioned, it goes with its own set of generators. And we used one of them.
Okay.
One of them that allows you to build from scratch the microfrontend architecture. And as mentioned, it was made in this moment, like literally in the seconds. We managed to start the application after 2 minutes of playing with the NX, and then it was provided to the business. They could have accepted that, whether it suits their requirements and meets them. Everything was just fine. So it was the moment that I had the first opportunity to play with NX, and nowadays I'm the, let's say, NX fan.
Okay, that sounds great. But NX, in NX, you can like choose, for example, that you want to use Webpack or RSPack or Vita. You can use everything for the project, choose whatever you want.
Indeed. And I believe that in recent times, their approach had changed significantly. So during the time that I mentioned before, when we were about to set up the project, it was kind of mandatory top-level package JSON that we had to maintain, and it allowed only, I believe, Webpack and module federation. But in recent years and recent months, especially, they allowed the developers to also integrate, as you mentioned, RSPack or Vite. There are separate plugins that allows you to build upon that, to build the micro-frontend architecture using either Vite plugin federation or RSPack integration. So this comes out of the box as well with NX.
Okay, so great. This is a huge tool, I think.
It is a big one, rather a big one. It's, I believe, already version 21st of it. As mentioned, it comes with different subtools that you don't really need to use, but it's a good foundation. You can generate the graphs out of it. So basically, if you feel like you have some issues with your microfrontends architecture, you can easily debug it with just one command line check. So
okay,
after all, it's not only about orchestrating, but also about debugging and definitely about deployment.
Oh, and they have something like NX Cloud or something like this, when you can track everything, yeah?
Indeed. They have their own dedicated platform, cloud, as you mentioned, that you can use as a deployment bucket for your application. And it's already prepared to also split your microfrontends into the chunks, separate chunks, and then deliver it to the end user separately.
So Tomek, for what type of business the microfrontend approach is?
Great question. I would say for any, but there are some businesses that will probably get more value from that. First of all, I believe that we need to look at the scale, right? If we have like many users, many different parts of the system, and especially many teams working on the system, then it's definitely a moment that we should look at, oh, maybe we need micro frontends. And obvious choices are like e-commerce, this kind of stuff, especially when you have like huge marketplaces put together with many components like product component or product area, checkout, this kind of stuff. Especially if you are looking at systems where you also have something called multi-tenancy, where many different clients, many different tenants are using the system independently, and they may have like different subscription models or different permissions or different access to different features, right? We haven't mentioned like feature toggles that can also enable turning on and off some features that are accessible for different kind of tiers or different tenants, but this also can be done using the Microfrontends approach, right? Because we can either load or not load a given part of the system, given Microfrontend. That's why I said that e-commerce would probably be the first obvious choice, but we also have like huge parts where in like telecom, in like logistics, pretty much any other area. Finances definitely are a great place where you can have Microfrontends, although you need to remember about different security measures, this kind of stuff. So probably there will be only like limitations when it comes to the way that we are building the Microfrontends at the very end, right? Because
okay, so for example, when we are giving some kind of having like application on the production, and we want to change only one thing, we need to restart whole the production, or we can like have like one part to be updated on the page.
And that is the magic that happens underneath. So you can just deploy the one Microfrontend separately, and after some time it's loaded. Besides the stuff that happens in the cloud, that stuff is cached, that you are on the safe side, there is no downtime for your application, no downtime for your given Microfrontend. You can just separately deliver it, and then it's being assembled into one.
Yeah, so Tomek, you were mentioning about the time to market. So the time to market is very, very fast.
Yes, it's pretty much instant when it comes to delivering new feature. Let's imagine an example, right? We have a checkout and we want to apply new like a promotion rule, right? For example, like you're buying 2 products, you get the third one free, right? This shouldn't like touch like the product page or anything like that, right? We don't need to redeploy everything, change anything in the product page. Only at the very end, when you have the field where you either select or put like a code or something, like a coupon, this is the place where this will be applied, right? Of course, there's backend changes, this kind of stuff. So basically, if you will like redeploy the checkout part, then you are done. And also, you don't need to use like iframes or anything like that. I mentioned we pretty much can do that with lazy loading, right, of the modules, which will basically, okay, the system is ready, something changed, and we know that we need to load the different module. It's pretty much instant.
So to sum up, if your application have like the feature flags or different plans for because this is like the SaaS platform or something like this, or your time to market is very, very fast, this is for you.
Yes, exactly.
Okay.
Exactly. And as you mentioned, feature toggles, we can also perform like very good and reliable tests because, for example, we can enable the new features, new Microfrontends or parts of the system independently for different agents with different users. So we can, for example, test this internally. We can roll it out slowly, right? We can do A and B tests, this kind of stuff. Okay. And Microfrontends are enabling that in a very, very easy, approachable way because basically you can either load or not load given Microfrontend. Right, so we are doing like a canary deploy here, but with chunks of the app.
Let's say that we want to start a new application. So should we use a Microfrontend?
I would say that it depends from the organization that you already have. If you feel like it's a part of a bigger project that you are a part of, you can think about it. If you feel like the organization is mature enough to also communicate properly in between the teams, then you also can think about the Microfrontends architecture from the scratch. But I rather think that for newly created startups, new greenfield project, it's going to be rather an overkill rather than something that you will benefit from. As mentioned, it adds a layer of maintainability. So you have to think in advance on how you will communicate in between the teams, what are the rules, and so on and so forth. From time to time, it needs another level of communication. So for startup, when you have to grow rapidly, to develop rapidly, to add new features quickly, it's going to be an overkill. But for some major products, you can think about it.
Okay, and for the legacy systems as well.
Yes, and you can decide, you can make this decision later during the application lifetime, right? Let's say you are the startup, and at some point you grew up, you cannot like take everything in house. You need to outsource some parts of the system. This is the moment when you should like, oh, maybe this is the moment I start to investing into microfrontends approach, right?
If I may add something, that was actually the case in my project. So we had a Vue application written as a monolith, and the task given to us, the development team, was to split it into the chunks, into the microfrontends after the rewrite, we called it. And indeed, it worked out. We already had 3 separate teams that were in the meantime helping us, because it was also possible, because the application, the monolith, were initially split into some logical chunks, and 3 of the teams could work separately on this. Okay. And that was something that we took from the microfrontends architecture. So it worked out for us. So it's gonna be working as for plenty of different projects, especially
because you are not chained with the technology.
That's the thing. You can think about if you have some chunks that could be reused from the Vue application, you can also introduce it. During that time, we actually rewritten the whole application in React, but some common logic was just exported to the new project and reused.
Okay, so this is a huge knowledge, this whole microfrontends. But can I get some information about it?
Yes, in JLabs we give you this possibility. Recently, 2 of our engineers, Piotr and Adrian, had the opportunity to prepare something we call a cookbook. Oh. So basically it was a well-served recipe on how to build the microfrontends from scratch. What are the advantages, disadvantages, what you have to think of in advance once you are preparing to either rewrite or creating something from scratch.
Okay, I heard that Tomek, you was reading this book.
Yeah.
And for whom this book is?
This book is pretty much for the developers that want to learn and the clients, the business owners that want to introduce microfrontends or are considering introducing microfrontends. So for both sides, right? If you want to know more about microfrontends as a developer, how to start, where to look for more like details, even like with some technical examples, because there are like some examples of an actual projects there, this is the place where you can look. But also if you want to, or you are considering introducing microfrontends or thinking about, oh, maybe microfrontends are for me, this is the place where you can also find the answer to your question.
Okay, so this book looks great. Where can I find it?
You can actually find it right now on our JLabs website, and also there are a couple of links in the social media accounts, like on LinkedIn or Facebook account of JLabs.
So thank you guys for the very good discussion about microfrontends. With me was Tomek.
Thanks.
And Piotrek.
Thank you.
And if you have any questions, additional questions about the microfrontends, you can find the link in the description for the contact form for the JLabs page. You can ask as many questions as you want. And thank you. Take care. No to let's go. 3, 2, 1.
Gonna be suitable for different microfrontends that are.
Okay, so where this book is available? Like, subscribe. Thanks for the great discussion, and see you soon in the next episodes of our podcasts.